is Tax Pro Nation, the home of independent tax professionals. Find community, maximize your earnings, and live life on your own terms. I'm your host, Jeff Dolan, Vice President of Pronto Tax School.
And I'm your co-host, Andy Fry, founder and CEO of Pronto Tax School.
As a tax professional, you take pride in giving the best service you can to every client you serve. Too often, your good work goes unnoticed. Too often, your story goes untold. No more. Unnoticed and untold ends now. Welcome to Season 2, the Season of Story, where it's all about recognizing and appreciating you, the hardworking tax professionals that inhabit the mysterious land known as Tax Pro Nation.
In this episode, we hear from Karensue Matthews. She is our Rising Phoenix Award winner from the 2020 My Tax Career Story contest that we ran here at Pronto Tax School. And she is a divorced mother who started over again from a tent and a picnic table in New Jersey. And I cannot wait for you to hear this conversation. Let's jump in.
Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
Yes, I appreciate what y'all do too.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been awesome to get to know you some, and we're really looking forward to this interview. You had a really powerful story that you submitted, and I think it's really going to help a lot of people to hear about your journey. So we're definitely excited to have you as a guest.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here too.
This season, we're focused on telling the stories of our tax professionals in our community and our network. And we are interested to kind of go through the ups and downs of your story. And we've heard a lot of great vulnerability that's been shared from members and from tax professionals that are not just celebrating, all the great successes, but also the failures sometimes and the difficulties in their lives. So kind of starting from the beginning, what kind of got you interested in the tax business, and when did you make that transition?
Well, my family had a fishing business, a dock and fishing boats, and my grandparents raised me, and we had a little office in the house, and my grandmother would always be sitting there doing the books. And I'd watch her, and then we had ice machines, and she'd make us count the money, and I swore I would never get into that field. And I ran away from home at 17 years and 364 days. Wow. I was a day away from 18. I ran away from home, she claimed, and I moved by myself, and I knew no one. And I thought, what better way to get to know someone than to go to college? So I signed up for college, and they asked what I wanted to major in, and I was like, I have no earthly idea. My grandmother was an accountant. Let's go that direction. So that's what I did, and here I am.
Nice. And where did you grow up? What part of the country where you were involved with that fishing business?
Cape May, New Jersey.
And then you went to college in what area of the country?
In a little tiny area called Pamlico County, North Carolina. Middle of nowhere.
Yep.
Nice. So the middle of nowhere sounded pretty good to you. And then you enrolled in college, kind of getting into the exact profession that as a kid you said you didn't want to get into. Like, what changed from like not wanting to be involved in that at all to then choosing to get involved with it? Was it just by like, hey, you needed something to do? Or was there some kind of spark there that said, hey, this might be a good path for me to take?
Well, when I enrolled in college, after a couple weeks, they said, well, you really need to pick a major. And out of a lack of any knowledge of anything else, I said, let's do accounting. So I did, and I enjoyed it. And I had a 4-point GPA, and I took a little short weekend vacation to visit my husband in New York. He worked on a tugboat, and I got snowed in, and I was at my limit of absences. So my 4.0 went to a 3.98 GPA. That's what I graduated with.
Wow. So when did you get married?
Soon after I moved to North Carolina.
Oh, wow. So in college, you got married?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
And as usual, the husband is, responsible for a drop in the GPA. That's what we do. It's like, it's hard to maintain a 4.0 if you're around any kind of man, We just always seem to.
He told me, he said, well, you need to retake the class. I said, no, a 3.8 3.98 is good enough.
Yeah.
Right on. You had your priorities. So that's a really interesting field and one of the things we've been learning, Karensue, with hearing our members' stories, it's just like all the different kind of unusual ways that people get into the business. And so if you think of like a family fishing business, and then your husband's also then working on a tugboat, how did that kind of business influence what you do today?
It was interesting because, my grandmother, she gets all the books for the boat. It was just quite interesting how I got back into it when I wanted nothing to do with it. And then when I moved back to New Jersey, a lot of my clients were fishermen, and they're like, we need to go to you because you know the business, which I found that really interesting, how I ended up away from here for 22 years. I come back and I fall right into the same thing.
So that to me speaks to how powerful a niche is, right? They knew her and trusted her in that community. And now that she had outside knowledge of accounting, they were like, we trust you first. And we're not going to go to any other. And I'm sure there were plenty of accountants in New Jersey in that area, right?
Yes, a lot of them don't know the fishing industry.
Right.
And there was one gentleman, he said, I was audited and they're not giving me anything. Can you help me? So we took the case to court in Philadelphia to the IRS. And we won every deduction that we wanted because they said, no, street clothing is not deductible. I said, excuse me, have you ever been around the fishermen? Would you like to go sit down to supper with them? Would you even walk through Walmart with them? And the fellow said, well, I've been on a party boat. I think you're right. We're going to allow that.
Right. Definitely a two different sets of clothing situation at that point. That makes sense. And I think what we've been hearing too, right, Jeff, is for people that have a strong niche, a strong identification with a particular community, of the guests we've had, right? That's been a common trend for a lot of people. So I guess for anybody that might be listening to this is just thinking like, what makes your community where you came from or that you're very familiar with unique? What do you know that no other tax pro would know? And I guess too, what I would wonder about, Karensue, is, and a lot of people in our profession, right, they kind of wonder like whether to do accounting and tax, whether to just focus on one and kind of maybe do a little bit of the other or not do any of the other. How for you with your accounting knowledge, but also working with taxes, like have those two knowledge areas and service areas gone together really well? Has it been a challenge? What would you say to somebody that's thinking about whether or how to combine those two areas?
I think it goes very well together, especially when you get into corporations, sole proprietors, LLCs. I think it's important to know what you're putting, where you came up with the information to put onto the tax return. But I'm also a firm believer that to do taxes, you have to love to do it. So you can, like accounting, I do a lot of payroll. I do quite a few companies' payroll. I'm a service bureau. But I could never do a tax return for a business unless I love doing it, because you come into situations and problems and you have to enjoy. I get called a bloodhound by some of my clients because I search for my answers until I have it.
And I think that too would lend to the niche, right? The community. Because if you actually care about the people, you'll enjoy it a lot more. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So if you're picking a niche that you're just picking out of the air or throwing a dart at, right? Because you heard it was a hot niche or something, and you're not really passionate about the people or the community enough to even learn about the too close scenario that we just talked about, you're not going to enjoy it. I mean, it's going to be a slog. It's going to be hard. So I think finding a niche where you not only understand it, but you enjoy the people in it.
And your clients have to appreciate you also.
Ooh.
And a lot of times I'll tell them, I'm not going to finish this return right now. Let me think about that, because I know there's something I'm missing. So in the shower or in bed laying there at night, I'll think about, okay, what am I missing? And if you are not driven to help your client, then you don't have anything.
Yeah, otherwise it really does become a lot of misery, and just trying to get through it and get through the day. But isn't part of that, Karensue, also like a decision that we have to make Because when you love something, it's not like you love it every minute, right? I mean, you have your good days, your days where you're not maybe feeling like doing it. And there seems to be kind of a decision, and it's decision to be optimistic. What could you say about that part of it? Because I know it hasn't always been easy for you to do this profession.
Right. No, there are days where I just need to walk away and I put it down. And it's funny, I'll be searching for something. I'll be tired. I'll be needing a break because I'm working day in, day out. And I'll walk away, and the next day I'll come back refreshed, and there's my answer. It's right in front of me. And why didn't I catch that before? Because I'm exhausted. And my family gets neglected at certain times. So to walk away and spend time with the family and refresh yourself and come back, that means a lot.
Yeah, to consciously take that time away, that completely makes sense. So kind of where we were in the story of where you went to college, your husband, had you slightly drop your GPA, but it was still extremely high, and that was good enough for that point. Where did you go next, and kind of what were some of the key things that happened to bring you to where you are today?
Well, I ran my own firm there in North Carolina, and my husband and I ended up divorcing. So I left with my children and our clothes, my son's bicycle, my gold flatware, and computer. That's all I left with.
Wow.
And I came back to New Jersey. I said, well, that's where my family is. Let me go back to New Jersey. Cape May is a very touristy area. I came back May 20th, and you're not going to find a year-round rental at the end of May. I said, oh, what am I going to do? So I went to Kmart and bought myself 3 tents. One for me, one for my children, and one to use as a kitchen. So we went camping, and the owner finally came. He said, I'm going to have to put a mailbox up here for you. You're just making a home homestead here. I said, yeah.
That's awesome. So you kind of turned it into an adventure then.
I did. And I put my computer, because I made sure to get a campsite that had electric. So I plugged my computer in and sat there doing books and accounting. I put an ad in a local paper, and people started calling. So I started there on that.
Was that?
That was 2000.
Wow.
I mean, I think there's a lot of potential to bring that concept back, because now with COVID, we're supposed to be outside. So it's almost like...
That's right.
You know what I mean?
I was just in the mountains.
Work.
I was just in the mountains, and these people in RVs, they love it. I mean, they love it. They came in, they had their electrical, their little water spigot, their waste spigot. I mean, they had their picnic table, their little fire pit. They had it, man. They were just sitting there. They had it made. They loved it.
That's right. Yeah, I couldn't afford much. I'm now a brand new single mother. So I said, well, I can't afford another tent to set up an office. So I went and got a tarp, and I had the workers at the campground help me tie it in the trees.
Wow.
So I had a roof over my head.
That's amazing. And then how long did it take you to get from that into something more stable?
By the end of August, I was putting in job applications too, and I'm like, I know nothing about New Jersey taxes. Absolutely nothing. Federal, that's good anywhere. So I said, how am I going to learn New Jersey? I can't afford to go back to college. So I applied with a CPA, and he hired me, and I was with him almost 3 years, and I learned everything I needed to know. So by then I had a house, and I started an office in my house, and the first year that I had an official office, I had 350 clients by word of mouth.
Wow. Now, how many clients did you have when you were working at the picnic table?
I had 4.
4?
I had 4, and I even started payroll for one of them. So that's what got me into the idea of, let's do payroll. That'll do something, you know. So I went to an ice cream parlor, and I wanted a child size. And the girl behind the counter said, we don't have child size. We only have small. And she got real, snooty with me. So the next day, I kept really upset about this. So I went back the next day, and I saw the owner. I said, I don't know who was here last night, but I told her what happened. And we got talking. It was her daughter. And to this day, we're really close friends, and they were my first full payroll, accounting, taxes, everything client. And they're still with me, and their whole family is.
That's so cool.
That's
was like-
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just goes
Yeah,
to
it
show
was pretty-
you got to be kind to people.
Yeah, well, being kind, but also being conscious of that business owner needs to have somebody at the front that's not too snooty, And I know being an owner's kid myself, sometimes you take a couple liberties here and there as far as how you might be acting on a particular day, and I think the boss, you like to hear about that to keep a nice environment, for it actually makes you kind of want to work with the person. So I could see how that could yield fruit, and I guess I would wonder, because I know a lot of people are community as well, Karensue, and you from being in our Facebook group and just interacting quite a bit with the other members. I know you're highly respected among the other members. A lot of people deal with divorce, or becoming or being a single parent. And with taxes, some of it is an uneven income, or it can be a seasonal income. So there can be a lot of anxiety about how to kind of manage the finances as you're a single parent and you have kids relying on that income, or some people are also taking care of their parents maybe. What kind of advice would you have for somebody that is a single parent, really sees the opportunity of the tax and accounting business, but also concerned about the seasonal aspect and kind of how to make those numbers work?
Well, the biggest thing was doing payroll. I have 24 corporations that I do payroll for. Then I make a circle around the county every Thursday night, hand delivering it. So their checks are never late, like with the other companies.
Okay.
The mail didn't come. And so that was a big decision. And that's year-round income. That's really nice income. And also being a problem solver. That is really good money, and it's a challenge. I always love the challenge. And you get close to people, and it's funny how word of mouth, well, I was in this situation, and Karensue helped me. You got to go see her. And that grew it, quick. That grew the firm.
So having a year-round...
Having those few elements carry you through, because in the summer, the employment's up, and then the IRS sends most of their letters out late summer, early fall. So that carries you through the fall. That gets you to the winter, and then the tax season starts.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we've seen among our top members that are doing well, like you, is kind of having at least a couple seasons, whether it's tax problem resolution season and then tax prep season, but also kind of like one service that, and people have different services that fill this role, but one service that gives you a steadier income throughout the year. And it sounds like payroll for you was that service. And I like that personal touch that you added about delivering the checks. What would you say to somebody that's specifically thinking about doing payroll? Do you think that's a good opportunity for everybody, only for some people? How would somebody come away with this conversation with an idea whether they should give that a try?
It's not something for someone who doesn't pay attention to details. You really have to be detail-oriented, make sure everything's correct, because you don't want your clients getting letters from the IRS. So if you're going to do payroll, you have to stick with it. You have to be committed. But it's a very good money maker if, you're looking for something year round. But then when tax season comes, if you're in the office alone, it's hard to do payroll and taxes. So you might want to consider having someone else, because if you think April 15th taxes are due, you're going crazy. Well, your quarterly reports are also due April 30th. So if you want to get into it, you're going to have to expand if you're big in the tax season.
So how did you, Karensue, do that? How did you expand your team to handle both taxes and payroll?
Well, during tax season, we have from 3 to 4 people in here besides me.
Nice.
And then in the summer, it's just me and one other person, because there's a lot more payroll in the summer, but 2 of us can handle it. Then the one person that I usually have, she's good with payroll. She's here, October on. So that works. Because to do it myself, there's no way with 24 companies of payroll.
Right.
I could never do it all.
And how did you connect with those team members? How long have they been with you? And what's the importance of kind of having a team as opposed to just doing it all yourself?
Well, the one girl, I just fired her, though. She was with me for 6 years. I taught her everything. She came in to answer the phone. I trained her in everything. And then this virus hit, and she decided she could get more money on unemployment than she could working. So That was the end of that. And the same, because I taught her everything. She was getting really good. So now I'm back to square one, training someone else. So makes it tough, but, I was always good to her, and she was good to me, but I guess the government putting in the $600 a week was a bad decision.
Yeah, it's always interesting with the team members because not everything lasts forever, right? And having those seasons of working with people and just appreciating the times that were had. But I know what you mean. It's kind of like hard to go back to square one after you've trained somebody to that extent and you kind of see them blossoming. It's kind of tough to see that. And what do you look for in somebody that you would hire?
They don't have to be proficient in payroll, but an attitude of I can do this, and something really important in this line of business. You don't want a person that will figure it out on their own. You want them to be willing and able to come to you to ask questions, because if they figure it out on their own, quote unquote, and it's wrong, you pay the penalty. So I find someone that wants to be a team member, and they'll come to me and ask me the questions and not branch out on their own and do something that they shouldn't be doing.
That's a double-edged sword, though, because that's a complete mindset difference, right? Because you have somebody on one hand that is a rule follower, a task taker, that yes, they're a team player, but they don't have that entrepreneurial mindset, right? So they're waiting on leadership. They don't really seeing the education you're providing as a stepping stone to the next level or to learn from you to grow in their career. They were merely looking at the paycheck and saying, oh, I can get a slightly better paycheck for less work over here, right? So I'm going to just go over here and do that. Instead of thinking like an entrepreneur, like, oh, I'm going to actually use this to grow my career and learn and grow and grow my income longer term that way. Right. So that mindset of the entrepreneur is going to be more of a self-starter. Let me figure it out. But I guess what you're pointing out is you want them to have a team aspect to them. But that is hard, right? It's a double-edged sword, because if you hire the entrepreneurial type of mindset, the growth mindset, there is a potential that they could leave you rather than you're firing them for just being okay, getting a paycheck and just doing their job and not wanting to grow or do anything else.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead, Karensue.
And a lot of times they won't come to you to answer the question because that mindset thinks they're correct.
Yeah, exactly.
So then you're the one that pays the penalty for their mindset. So you have to be very careful.
Yeah,
and
they
learned on you. Exactly. And you have to know when to let them go to start making their own decisions.
Right.
Well, you must have seen that because you mentioned that you were hired and mentored by a CPA and worked with him for 3 years. So I'm sure you know that from the other side of the table too, right? Of somebody that's coming in, that's learning, that eventually is going to start your own company. How did that mentorship relationship from your former employer help you get to where you are now?
That was interesting. He was also the mayor of the town.
Oh, wow.
So I was left alone a whole lot. And I did really good. And then he came to me one day and he said, well, you're great with everything except New Jersey. I said, that's where I need you.
That's actually the only reason I need you, Mayor.
Exactly. So I basically ran his accounting firm while he was being mayor. So it was really interesting. So he took a chance on me because he knew I had the background. I just didn't have New Jersey background. So he took a chance on me. And I also, if I had a question, I went to him. I never sent anything out until I knew his approval was there. So that's what I always look in a person.
But something drove you still to go out on your own, right? So you kind of had both.
Well, he knew that my goal was to go on my own. So, he knew it was just temporarily until I learned enough of New Jersey, because I had to learn New Jersey corporate returns too. It wasn't just, payroll or simple TM40 for New Jersey. So, and he knew that, this was my goal. So, and it was very understood, and he was fine with that. So by the time he was done being mayor, I was ready to move on. So it all worked out perfectly.
Yeah, sounds like it. And some employers, they like actually the people that that don't want to be entrepreneurs. They really just want the person that's happy doing their job, and that's it. And they don't want anybody to try to rock the boat or change or grow, because they want to keep that person in that role as long as possible.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the reasons we're kind of mentioning this in a little more depth, Karensue, is this is actually one of the biggest kind of fail points or struggle points for tax pros that are already successful, is how do I add team while also protecting my own time, my own sanity, my own business, frankly, so not having people take your clients and that kind of thing. And so it's a pretty major concern. It sounds like overall, Karensue, you need to hire a new person. Are you overall happy with that team aspect part of it, or do you feel like it still continues to be, a pretty major challenge for you in your business?
No, I'm comfortable with it. And I like someone who knows nothing so that I can teach them my way. I don't want someone to come in who is experienced and they do it their way. And their way is total opposite of mine.
Right.
So it's so much easier for me to bring someone in and train them from the bottom up.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that's good to know ahead of time, because I know for us, we've hired people with experience before, and it's almost like you do prefer no experience because you haven't had the experience of doing it differently than we want it done. And when you're doing stuff like going around every Thursday and dropping off those paychecks, that's a personal touch that really makes a huge difference. And some people just look at that and be like, that's so inefficient. Like, why would you do that? You can do it all digitally, right? But this is the particular way that she's chosen to run her business. And you want to kind of be able to bring somebody into that, really that culture that's been built. What do you think, like looking forward, Karensue, there's been obviously from starting from a campground, starting your business from a campground, getting to the point now where you're running payroll for 24 corporations, you've got team members, you've got a business, and experienced, successful tax pro. With all the changes that have taken place, especially over the past couple of years, like what are you most excited about moving forward? And what do you feel is the best opportunity for you and also for your team?
Okay, moving forward, I've thought a lot about moving forward. And a few things have scared me, actually, and that's going to the postcard. So they attempted to do the postcard. They took a tax return and cut it on a half a sheet of paper, and then on the back they put page 2, which was on page 1. Then they made another page, cut it in half. So is that going to happen? I don't know, but it's the challenge out there to understand that we're not set in stone right now. The political theater is scary right now. It's like they talk about putting us out of business, and look at what the IRS is doing. Free e-file. A lot of people are going to the free e-file if you look at the percentages. So that presents a huge challenge for us. What can we do to keep ourselves going? To me, that payroll is the way to go, and it's scary to think the biggest part of my business, taxes, might disappear soon with the IRS free file and, going to a postcard. So I think everyone needs to think about other ways to get into this business, whether it be payroll, whether it be problem solving, or even the financial advice, which I never went that route, but a lot of people do. There's a lot of things, because to me, what's going to be left? Businesses and corporations. And a lot of people don't want to go do a return for a business or corporation. They like the simple W-2, 10 minutes, you're done, So you have to really decide, do you want to learn corporate accounting, corporate taxes? I think we're at a crossroads here in our country.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the idea that the IRS will, since they already have all the data, will be able to pre-fill the tax returns and kind of like give you almost like a default tax return. Like, hey, if you just want to file this, sign it, right? And so what we look at a lot, and as you know from being on our trainings and just kind of like interacting, is like as a professional, like we need to look and from the client's point of view and say, if I can do this for free, why am I going to pay you? Why am I going to pay you when I can do this for free? So a lot of times, and I think what Karensue's success in her own business is, that comes down to a relationship. Because if you actually value having a relationship with a trusted professional, that's enough of a reason why for a lot of clients. And so, but what I think that we need to get better at, right, is making sure that that relationship is there.
Yeah.
Making sure that it's actually solid.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way that we are able to move forward and still grow our businesses. And I think that goes to not just the owner, right? Because the owners usually are very good at that, but all the team too, understanding that like my relationship with this client is probably a prime reason why this client's even here today.
Yeah.
And while they'll refer and continue to grow like Karensue's done. So yeah, I'm excited that you're thinking about that as well. And yeah, just to really appreciate you sharing your experience.
The other side of that is, you mentioned tax problem resolution or solving problems. The other side of that is if I'm a business or even if I'm just a normal employee and I'm hiring a tax professional to do my taxes, the other side of the problem is the opportunity side, right? Like, here are ways that you can save on taxes. Have you thought about structuring your business this way? Have you thought about doing it right? So there's like a ton of things that you can do to suggest, and I think they're called tax strategists. Is there another name that I'm missing?
No, that's correct.
Is that correct? Yeah. So I think that is an interesting angle that you're going to start seeing where it's like, or you already are seeing, which is like we're suggesting ways that a tax software is not going to know to suggest or tell you, and having that relationship and having that conversation where it's like, I know I have somebody in my corner that's getting the tax game like solved for me on a proactive basis, not just like when I dump a bunch of papers in front of them, they're like going to figure it out. Not reactive, but like proactive. Like, hey, this law is coming. If you structure your business like this and do this and this and this, you can save this and do this. Man, that's awesome. Especially over several years where it's like, oh, you're going to sell your business in 3 years? Let's start planning now. Let's start doing some of the things that you need to do ahead of time. 3 years out, 2 years out, 1 year out. Don't come to me 6 months before you're going to sell your business and be like, hey, can you help me? Well, it's a little late for a lot of the strategies, right, that are proactive. So,
right.
But I think, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Funny you said that. I had a client that's been with me from the very beginning, 2003. And he said, I think I'm going to retire in a year or two. What should we start doing? So that does happen in the everyday planning, not just turning your business towards that direction.
Right.
It's a big part of it.
Yep. And having those conversations all throughout the year, not just one time a year. So you kind of know where your clients are at. If they're thinking about doing that, you can have those conversations earlier. The other thing, and this is just me being into cryptocurrency, but there's a lot of talk right now about central bank coins. Like if the Fed comes out with a coin or like China's coming out with their central bank, coin. The chatter in the crypto world is that what's the fastest, most secure way to get money to everybody? Give them a digital wallet, and then you can automatically put the money in their account. It forces everybody to have a digital wallet. Now you have full back-end government control of the money, of your money system. And if we go that direction, and some countries are already in that process, that means that individual taxes will be easily auditable by the government because they know they got access to your bank account basically. And so I think it's going to be interesting. I don't think this is a short-term, thing that's going to happen, but longer term, if we as a society go in that direction, it's going to be a lot easier for the government to see and do just simple taxes for people that don't have anything complicated going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and that's in the Bible too, that it's going to be a one currency world.
Good point.
You see it happening more all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm definitely hearing that we're looking forward with some trepidation, right, of the experienced tax pros. So if you're out there, you're maybe a newer tax pro, or you have a few years experience and you're feeling a little trepidatious, you're not alone in that. Even the more experienced pros like Karensue are still kind of seeing, hey, there's still a lot more changes to come. Not all those changes will be purely positive to either us as professionals or our clients. And so we do have to continue to kind of navigate through the situation and do our best. I wanted to see if we kind of move towards closing out this interview, Karensue, by asking you, your story is so powerful of starting your business literally from a campground building it up to what it is now. I mean, it's like, it really is like a American dream type of story in its own way. Are your clients aware of like that story from you? And what do they think of that? And how does that help you form, if they know your story in that way, how does that help you form an even better relationship with your clients?
Most of them are aware because they've been my clients for many, many years. A lot of them were with me from the beginning because, like I said, the first year I had 350 and I can't grow much more than that doing it myself. And it's funny, they come every year. I wish I had $1 for every time I heard, this is my once a year therapy session. I love sitting here and chatting with you. And so I'm never going to go anywhere else because I enjoy this. And that's what you have to do. You have to be personal with your clients. And I'll run into people in the street and, how are you doing? It's so good to see you. And I'm like, okay, who was this? And it's just the personal relationship means everything in this line of work.
Yep.
And
yeah, it really does. Yeah, we appreciate you. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just said I'd like to always keep that with my clients. Once I let that go, the business will be gone.
Yeah. And I have a feeling you're not going to let that go. And so that's why even moving into the future, I don't think there's any way for us to replace that human connection, right?
Right.
And that's what a lot of us are missing right now in this current environment where we haven't been relating. It just feels great to just hang out in the same room, do a podcast or hang out or talk to your tax pro. So I think if we keep that going, we'll be all right. So we really appreciate you spending this time with us, Karensue. And I know our other members will love to hear your story. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add, Jeff, or any other comments?
No, this is an amazing time with you, Karensue. So I know our listeners are going to get a lot out of it. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. And I enjoy y'all. I haven't been on Facebook. The election's over, but now I'll be back helping people.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, we appreciate that. All you contribute in the Facebook group and just overall, very much appreciated. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
and
you.
y'all take care. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Okay, thank you.